7 o'clock, Your Worship.
Good evening, everybody. I'll bring this regular council meeting to order on Monday, January the 17th, 2022, and a happy new year to everybody, and to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of Stahelis. The next order of business, please.
Yes, we'll move on to number 2, introduction of late items. Do you have any late items, Your Worship?
No, I do not have any late items.
Thank you. Could we have approval of the agenda then, please?
Quiet all. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody? Thank you. Business, please.
Yes, we'll move on to number 4, adoption of council minutes. We have the regular council meeting minutes of December 20th, 2021 here for adoption.
Moved by Councillor Vital, second by Councillor Piper. Any errors or omissions? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Anybody? No. All in favor? Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move right on through to number 5, any business arising from the minutes.
Any business from councillors arising from the minutes? Being none, we'll move on, please.
Thank you. We don't have any items on the consent agenda, nor do we have delegations or petitions or regular correspondence. Therefore, we'll move on to number 10, reports of councillors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions.
I don't see that we have Councillor Hooper on, do we? No. Okay, so we'll move on to Councillor Piper. I beg your pardon, Councillor Palmer.
I attended the C2C meeting, and I also, other than that, my other responsibilities, my library board meeting is this Wednesday, which I'll be attending, but nothing other than the C2C meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Your Worship. On January 11th, I attended the Harrison Agassiz Chamber of Commerce meeting virtually. Lori is busy working on the Shop Local grant and the launch of the new website. The board is excited to be involved in the OCP update for the village. Some very interesting and unique opportunities are coming up with training / seminars for small business owners and self-employed individuals. Even if you're not a chamber member, you're more than welcome. So on January 18th, there's a social media seminar. And on January 25th or February 10th, there's a GST seminar put on by the CRA. So that's an amazing opportunity to speak directly with a Canada Revenue Agency authority, so or representatives. So if you need more information, you can reach out to me, to the chamber, and they should be able to give you more details. On January 12th, I attended the Let's Mott C2C forum virtually. We had the honor of MP Brad Viss and MLA Kelly Patton attending the meeting. A subcommittee was established to work on a plan and communications in an expeditious manner to focus on investigating regional flood mitigation and slope stability strategies. Representatives from all communities on the forum will be involved. I just end my report with a thank you to our village staff for their work on the snow and ice controls through this last several weeks. It's often a losing battle due to winter conditions. So I just wanted to extend my thanks and appreciation to their hard work and dedication to our community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing I have on my report tonight is I also, on January 12th, attended the Let's Mott Community to Community Forum. It had been quite an extended time since we had the opportunity to meet. And as Councillor Piper indicated, it was a pleasure to have MP Brad Viss and MLA Kelly Patton attend. A very good and productive meeting, as Councillor Piper indicated, and I look forward to some good work being done with that subcommittee. Thank you, Your Worship.
And Councillor, next order of business, please.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 11, reports from the mayor.
Thank you. Just have a few here. Number one is councillors should have received now looks like the Lower Mainland Local Government Association is moving ahead with their conference at Whistler this year, May 4th and 6th. Hopefully that will go ahead. So those who are wishing to attend should let staff know on that one. As Councillor Piper alluded to, yes, a big thank you to our village crew, Christmas Day. They were doing 12-hour shifts out there clearing the snow. And also New Year, they did an excellent job of the streets as well and ongoing. So it wasn't an easy time, but they were out there and did what they could to keep our main arteries open. And when it was possible to try and clear some of the sidewalks, although as we all know on Hot Springs Road, that's a losing battle when you have the highways come along and push it all back onto the sidewalks again. But we do what we can, and we try to stay on top of it. Also, it was a thank you also to our indoor staff as well. They had to deal with calls from residents with their concerns as well, and short-staffed as well at times. So thank you all for that. It's a job well done. Lights by the lake we're looking for. Oh, good evening, Councillor Hooper.
Councillor Piper, can you hear us now?
Yes, hello, everybody.
Good. It looks like we're back online.
Okay, we're all
Yes.
back. Yes,
Mr. Cossie, can you hear us?
Mr. Cossey there.
Hello, yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business, please.
All right, we'll move on. Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move on to number 12, reports from staff. We have a report from the planning consultant regarding issuance of development permit DP 0621 for 470 Esplanade Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Cossey. Happy New Year to you, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Happy New Year to you and council as well. Alrighty, we're looking at 470 Esplanade Avenue, and we're looking at council's consideration on the issuance of a development permit. The site was composed of two separate lots at one time with respective civic addresses of 470 and 480 Esplanade. Since then, they've been consolidated into one lot with this single address of 470 Esplanade. The site is approximately 21,780 square feet or 2,023.3 square meters, or almost half an acre in size. The parcel is bounded by Esplanade Avenue to the north, Littlewood Avenue to the south, and other C1 permitted activities to the east and west of this lot. The site is currently vacant. The applicant is proposing to create a 4-story apartment development that will contain 28 apartments. The apartment dwellings are a permitted use for the zone. With respect to the OCP designation, the site is within the waterfront designation, and it is within the village commercial C1 zone, and both the uses are permitted under the OCP and the zoning bylaw. The site coverage for this parcel is 75%, and with the parkade, they're looking at a site coverage of 74.8%. The floor area ratio is 1.5 or must not exceed 1.5, and they are proposing a floor area ratio of 1.5. In addition to this, the developer is planning to install 4 electric vehicle charging stations that will service 8 parking stalls. From a development permit consideration, this is inside the Lakeshore Development Permit area, and that requires a form and character of the proposed building. Upon a review of the materials submitted, staff is of the opinion that the development permit objectives have been addressed properly. Upon a review of the application, staff is of the opinion that this application does not need to be referred to any external agency. There is a covenant on site or against this lot. This covenant addresses floodplain requirements and allows the flood construction level to be reduced from 14.55 meters down to 13.2 meters. And this is not an issue, as this will affect the proposed parkade area if any flooding occurs. On page 12 of the report, you'll see that we're asking for an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $503,640. That is taking into consideration all of the trim, the patio considerations, the railing, and the landscape plan that the proponent is talking about. Also on page 12, you can see under section 6 of the development permit that we've tied their proposed drawings into as to the actual development. And on page 21 of the report, you can see the material and the color legend. And our staff recommendation is, Your Worship, that development permit DP 0621 be issued to Oasis at Harrison Lake Development Limited for the property located at 470 Esplanade Avenue, Harrison Hot Springs, for land legally described as Lot A, Section 13, Township 4, Range 29, west of the 6th Meridian, New Westminster District, EPP 112669, subject to the following conditions: that the landscaping agreement be entered into with the village, and the provision of an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $503,640 is provided to the village.
Thank you, Mr. Cussy. So we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Vital. We have discussion. Start with Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Worship. Just some words of appreciation to the applicant. Thank you for thinking ahead and planning ahead for the EV charging units. That is has made me very pleased. And also, you know, providing extra parking as, I mean, adding a few extra stalls is going to be beneficial to the site. But other than that, I look forward to seeing this enhancement at that end of the lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Palmer.
Yes, I went through it very carefully. I like it in terms of the plans. I think I agree with what Councillor Piper has said. The EV sites, so of course, and I know this is beyond this development, but when I think about it, that provides for 8 sites, and of course that's a very small number considering the overall building. And I'm just thinking about projections that by 2030 that the majority of vehicles are going to be electric. Makes me realize that when I look at the streets of Harrison, we've got about 4 or 5 EV spots, and they're almost always filled with residents, not tourists. So I think that, and Councillor Piper has raised that issue several times on previous, and I think it's very true. But I think in terms of what's been done, it's good. I would only hope for more in the future, or just seems to be would be a market-based issue. If I were buying a unit, I wouldn't buy a unit if I couldn't ensure myself having an electric hookup for a car. But in any event, no, I'm supportive of this. Designs building looks good. I'm you know, quite optimistic it's going to be a good addition to the waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also echo Councillor Piper and Councillor Palmer's comments, and I also agree that it will be a wonderful addition to our waterfront down at that end. That being said, Your Worship, I do have one question for our planner. Mr. Cossey, excuse my relative limited knowledge on being able to read plans. My one that I need clarification is access to that parkade. I believe it will be off of Lillooet rather than Esplanade. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Then nothing further, Your Worship, and I will support the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Hooper.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, it's a very nice development, but again, the only problems I have is our infrastructure up to taking it. We have all the reports on the deficiencies within the NOEP. There's a report saying that our wastewater treatment plant is working at maximum capacity. We're going to be increasing, if we accept all these developments coming up over the next year, over 213 new areas. I will not vote for this. It's a very good development, very nice and the rest of it, until we have a guarantee that we're spending the appropriate amount of money on upgrading our wastewater treatment and our stormwater plant. Residents were asking this recent flooding to cut down on their water usage. I just don't want to overload the system. So I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Some comment. First of all, unless I'm totally out of sync here, does the staff have any comments? It's news to me that our water plant is operating at capacity. Wastewater treatment plant, that's news to me. I mean, we renovated that plant back in 2009, which is good up to, I think, 4,000 population. So I'm not sure whether those comments are coming from. In regards to upgrading Ott Street improvements, I think Mr. Cossey, that would be if there's any Ott Street improvements requiring in the size of the diameters, or whether it's the sewer or water, that comes under the developer, does it not?
Yes, it does, Your Worship.
Those areas were covered by the development, not by the village, from that perspective. But I'll carry on, Councillor, if I may, and then you can jump in later on that. I'll say you got me a bit confused on that one, so I thought I was correct. Our wastewater plant is not operating at capacity. Now, in regards to the building, I think it's a lovely looking building. I like the lines. It follows our award-winning lines of our roofing around the village in regards to our own infrastructure. I like that, but I do have some comments here which I'd like Mr. Cossey to clarify for me, because I noticed that in referrals to other governments, normally there's a referral there to the highways because of Lillooet. Is that not required, Mr. Cossey?
No, because the rezoning application is not applicable at this particular point in time. They would have had a chance to look at it through the previous OCP and through the past zoning bylaw update.
Okay. The previous discussions we had way back in October, the 7th report, I made three areas here that I mentioned. One was the E outlets, which have been taken care of, the electrical EV outlets. The other one was a commercial component. I see there's no commercial component on this building. And thirdly, looking at these plans, it appears that there are sidewalks. Am I correct, on Lillooet and Esplanade?
Yes.
So there are sidewalks.
Yes, there is sidewalks, Your Worship. Also with the commercial, it's in the C1 zone. The apartment building without the commercial is a permitted use.
Okay, thank you. And also the garden area at the back, which I'm assuming is on Lillooet, looks like a garden area with the trees and a little bridge and a seating area. Is that for the use of the residents, or is that open to the public at large?
At this point, I suspect it's just open to the residents of the building.
Of the building, okay, so I'm assuming that'll be fenced in some way at the back there, is it?
It could be, yes.
Okay, well, it's a nice looking area, I like it. It's just I was wondering whether it's open to the public at large, or is it going to be fenced if it's not going to be open to the public at large? Because it looks something a little bit different and I like it.
Yes, yeah.
Counselor Piper, can you hear us again?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, are you back?
Yes, your worship.
Ah, okay, just, yeah, and I noticed from our report in October, when we had a context of elevations, the elevation of this building was in line with the Cascades and the Laguna Beach, is that correct?
Yes, they've applied for a variance. The height restrictions is 15 meters in that zone, but we issued a variance to go to 17.3 meters.
Okay. And of course, obviously it does have an elevator, this building.
Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to walk up there. But yeah, it's, I say those are my questions, and any other, now back to council.
Yes, good evening again. Yeah, the report I was referring to was from our infrastructure manager back in 2016, Troy Davis, who later on became our asset manager. And his report stated that when they were doing the major development between Pine and Alder, that these wastewater treatment plant would require some extensive work. Now, I do know that might have been last year or the year before, we spent nearly 90,000 on new filters and that. Have we got capacity to actually increase the number of filters within that plant now?
Mr. Cook?
For your worship. Yeah, we do have capacity to be able to accept future development.
So if we increase all the development that we've got on our books at the moment, if it all passes, the treatment plant is capable of taking on another 213 properties?
If that, I'm not sure if that's a number that's being slated, but I believe that we'll be able to handle that.
Even though that in the storm, we was asking people not to actually use their washing machines and the rest of it.
That was the storm event that did negatively impact the wastewater treatment plant, but that was nothing to do with the actual usage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Any further questions from council? Councillor Piper, you're okay there? No, nothing else from anybody else? Okay. So on the recommendation, we'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Opposed, Councillor Hooper. The motion passes. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move on to the next report, and that is regarding the 2022 municipal election appointments. This is something that's required under the Local Government Act, that they must appoint, the council must appoint a chief election officer and a deputy election officer for the conduct and administration of the municipal election. So consequently, we have a recommendation this evening that pursuant to Section 58(1) and 2 of the Local Government Act, Rhonda Shell be appointed as Chief Election Officer for conducting the 2022 general local election and assent voting, with power to appoint other election officials as required for the administration and conduct of the 2022 general local election and assent voting to be held in October of 2022, and that Deborah Key be appointed as the Deputy Chief Election Officer for the 2022 general local election.
Okay, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Hooper. Discussion, anybody on this? Mr. Piper.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick thank you. This is extensive, detailed work, long hours on top of other duties. So I just want to extend my gratitude for Ms. Shell and Ms. Key for putting their names forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on this, or I'll call the question? On the recommendation, all in favor? No opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Next order of business, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We'll move on to the next report. That's from the Chief Administrative Officer, and this is regarding emergency notification software.
McDonald?
Yes, Your Worship, through you to the rest of council and to the public attending tonight. This is about emergency notification software, which is a tool that's available to rapidly distribute emergency notifications to residents primarily through personal cell phones, but also through landlines and social media. As you are no doubt aware, the Village of Harrison Hot Springs typically relies upon social media channels and public bulletin boards to disseminate information about local emergencies or service interruptions, such as road closures or water shutoffs. And in the event of a more serious emergency, up to and including an evacuation order, the village is prepared to utilize the fire department, the RCMP, and village staff to notify the public. Increasingly, however, local governments in BC are transitioning to using technology to help with these notification processes around emergencies. And while this would never completely replace a door-to-door check on people during events such as evacuations, it can drastically speed up the notification process. You might be familiar with or have heard of the Alert Ready system. This is the proprietary system used by the federal, provincial, and territorial governments across Canada to send alerts. However, this is not generally available to local governments in BC, and it is reserved for use typically for tsunamis, amber alerts, and police incidents. So in the absence of access to that system, in our region, a lot of local governments have adopted a similarly named and similar program called Alertable. It's currently used by the Fraser Valley Regional District, the District of Hope, the City of Mission, and many other.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Sorry for the interruption. We just suspended the discussion while the reset was happening again.
No problem. Thank you.
Your Worship, if I may.
Yes, please, carry on.
Respond to some of the questions that Councillor Vidal put on the table, which may not have gone out over the Zoom broadcast, but correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Vidal. Some of the issues that you raised was wondering if we're going to have a public education component as we roll this out to ensure that the system just doesn't suddenly land on people, creating perhaps an elevated level of alarm and prompting unnecessary 911 calls or overburdening staff with excessive calls or that sort of thing. Certainly, anybody who wants to sign up for the Alertable app will have access to the user guides and that sort of thing. I can say I'm a user myself because I wanted to try it out because I live in Hope and they use it there, and it's a pretty simple system. You can, if you have a cell phone and you're familiar with your own technology, you can adjust the settings to receive as many or as few alerts as you like and leave it so that it just would give you critical alerts. I know some of us have had to dial it back because there's so many weather warnings coming out these days, because I think Environment Canada is very sensitive to the fact that they need to warn us of every little thing, whether it be a snowfall or rainfall or anything. So those things become self-evident as you start to use the app. But with respect to potentially creating panic or an elevated or unnecessary level of alarm with the messaging that goes out, the messaging would be controlled by the village. So it really wouldn't be any different than the messaging we currently push out on social media. And if we're trying to catch people's attention, the messaging would be more dramatic. If we're simply using it for informational purposes, which we could, such as pending water shutoff or a road closure, the information would be there presented in a manner controlled by us. So I don't have a lot of concern around that. Easy for me to say because this will be managed by the manager of community services through our a lot of this will go through the Get Into It Harrison platform. That will be a place where people can go to learn more about it and to get more in-depth information about any messaging that we're putting out there. But I do like this system because people can also subscribe through a landline or email, and you don't have to have a smartphone to participate. So the critical messaging would go out through all of those media.
Thank you. And just one more question for clarification. This system would be available to anyone, not just to residents of Harrison. And the reason I ask that is our seasonal visitors that come up here, they would be able to access that app also if they chose.
Right, that's a very good question. Certainly, yes, it's available to anybody. And what happens is you put in your primary address when you sign up for the app. So it will focus its information on that particular area. So you might want to make changes to that if you came up to Harrison for the summer or that sort of thing. So yes, that's a good point. It's available to everybody.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. So
Councillor Piper has the question.
sorry, Councillor. Councillor Piper.
Out of sight, out of mind, no worries. Just some comments. I think I heard almost the whole report, but I have it in front of me, so that's fine. I think it's a really good investment as it adds another layer or a tactic to updating our key publics. And all the publics that are within our boundaries, if they chose to select the follow me option in the app, settings could be advised of an emergency. I mean, there's a million scenarios, 12 months of the year that could occur. And with so many not so far from their cell phones these days, this safety enhancement speaks to efficiency in a safety messaging way. I assume this is what Councillor Vital was speaking to, but I'd like to also see a public awareness campaign. So thank you to the CAO for explaining what can happen with that. I just ask during that public education that we ensure and advise our public that traditional notifications will remain, such as with emergency services, fire, RCMP, social media, etc. I see the benefits of a municipality subscribing to the system as I have been using it for some time. And especially with the weather and road events we've experienced as of late, this information will be widely used and very specific to our community. So I think it's a great investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? Any more comments? No. So on the recommendation, all in favour? Nobody opposed? Everybody in favour? Thank you, Councillor. Motion passes. Next order of business, please.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. We'll move on to number 13, bylaws. And we have the revitalization tax exemption bylaw number 1170/2021 here for adoption. At the last regular council meeting of December 6th, council gave second and third reading to the revitalization tax exemption bylaw. Accordingly, the bylaw is here for adoption. So the recommendation this evening is that the revitalization tax exemption bylaw number 1170, 2021 be adopted.
Thank you. So we have it moved by Councillor Piper, seconded by Councillor Palmer. Any discussion? Councillor Hooper?
Yes, so I'm reading a question to staff, actually. I'm reading the definitions that it says affordable housing is a rental housing where the rent is no more than 30% of the tenant's income. How do we get to that point? I mean, if they've got two tenants and one's going to pay more than the other, I mean, it's something we can't control, isn't it?
Ms. McDonald?
Yes, thank you for raising that issue again. Just to reiterate, the village is not proposing to go into the business of administering affordable housing, but this bylaw would open up opportunity for third-party nonprofits to come in with housing proposals. And that would be the criteria which we've taken from the province that would apply, but it wouldn't be administered by us.
Right, just one more question. On the program eligibility, it's got construction improvements. Is the tax exemption on that just on the improvement amount, or is it on the whole building that's being improved?
No?
Yes, thank you also for that question. Very important. It's on the improvement.
And one further one. Anyone building a house in Harrison now, can they apply for this?
Can you hear us, Councillor Hooper? Piper, sorry?
Yes, I can.
Good. I'll just, we're just coming to the recommendation again. Do you have any comments at all for adoption?
No further comments, no.
Okay, so I'll call the question again as we lost Councillor Piper there. All in favour? Opposed? Opposed, Councillor Hooper, motion passes.
Okay.
Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move on to number 14, new business. Do you have any new business?
Yes, Councillor Vital has asked for some time to report out on an idea that she has, so I'll leave it with Councillor Vital to report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've always been so thankful and grateful for individuals in our community who have and continue to contribute significant volunteer hours to enhance the quality of life within our village. These individuals demonstrate exceptional community spirit and inspire others to give, earning the respect of myself and our residents. These individuals selflessly volunteer and assist others and organizations without the expectation or need to be recognized or acknowledged. These individuals who generously donate their time and talents are indeed inspirational role models whose contributions serve others above themselves to help keep us safe, healthy, and our village thriving and vibrant. From emergency responses to those individuals who tirelessly volunteer during our many festivals and events, to those individuals who watch out for neighbors during winter and extreme weather events, to those individuals whose passion is to protect our habitat, to those individuals who so graciously offer to transport our seniors to medical appointments and to lend a hand wherever needed, are truly community-minded and make our village a better place for all of us. With those thoughts, I propose that our council offer an annual award of recognition to individuals who exemplify community spirit, volunteerism, and commitments to making our village the amazing place we call home. With that, I move the following motion: that staff be directed to report back to council with a draft policy for a nomination-based volunteer recognition program to recognize residents who demonstrate extraordinary volunteerism, community service, and commitment to the well-being and benefit of our citizens and our visitors. Thank you, Your Worship.
Before I ask for a second, Councillor Vital, may I add to that the local businesses as well, who demonstrate a lot of goodwill at certain times of the year?
Absolutely, Your Worship, and I'm sure I have neglected to mention many, many more, but yes, thank you for bringing that up.
We have a seconder for this. Seconded by Councillor Hooper. This is going back to staff, or any discussion from councillors regarding the Councillor Palmer?
Just a question of clarification. I listened to the motion. I wasn't clear whether it meant an individual or an entity once a year or numerous people. I didn't, that wasn't clear to me. What was the intent?
My intent was for it to be a annual award given to an individual. I'm sure if it was a group of individuals or a member of an organization, that could also be included in the policy. Does that answer your question, Councilor Palmer?
Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors regarding this? No? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed, anybody? Opposed, Councillor Piper? No?
Oh, I'm in favor.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, came up late. Thank you. Thanks very much. Everybody in favor, motion passes. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move on to number 15. That is questions from the public pertaining to agenda items only.
Are there any questions from the public this evening pertaining to the agenda? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. I have a couple.
Hello, Councillor Piper. Are we back online?
I can see you guys.
You
and
back,
hear you
Sam?
here. I'm
Thank
back.
you. Good.
Sorry,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Allen.
I push a button. Yes, so my letters have not appeared in the agenda, and the only way that I can be assured that my comments on this bylaw, which affects myself and 4 other property owners in the downtown core area, the only way I can be sure those comments have been considered by council if they are actually on the agenda and considered by council here at a public council meeting. And I have no assurance that that happened prior to this adoption of the bylaw. So I'd just like to ask why the normal process of seriously considering comments from the public has been ignored in the case of bylaw 1170.
Oh. Yes. Corporate officer?
Yes, Your Worship. There was correspondence received at the village office from Mr. Allen, and they've been placed in the circulation package for distribution to council.
Got it in front of me, October the 18th.
Yeah, not very satisfactory. I have no idea that those letters have been read by council before they voted tonight. And the only way that to guarantee that is to have them on the agenda before council, before the vote, and that didn't happen.
I have to take into account, Mr. Allen, that our council is a council that reads all their correspondence, whether it comes from residents or what's put in front of them before they come to the council meeting. So
Well, yes, but
the correspondence was received. I have it in front of me at 3:34 p.m. on October the 18th.
well, it was actually 11:45.
Anyway,
AM.
it was received. Your next question.
Well, I still have no assurance that council has considered those comments.
Well, council had received the correspondence, and it's for them to consider in which way they seem fit.
Okay, my
Before
next
answering
question relates to the development at 470 Esplanade, back in perhaps September, October, November, when this property first came before council, it was a small development, I think of 6 apartments on the north half of this lot, maybe 8,
No,
I can't quite remember.
Oh.
And a height exemption was granted based on this being a small building on the north side of the building. Today, what we have is a much larger project comprising 28 suites and comprising all of the property running from the Esplanade back to Lillooet Avenue. Normally, in a normal municipality, that would be considered a whole new project. And anything that went on before in the way of an approval would be thrown out and a fresh start would be made. And in a well-run municipality, that would include a referral to the APC and details like the width of the sidewalks and other considerations. So I'm asking, why is this being slipped through here as almost the same thing as was approved before, with a relaxation of the height, with as if that was carried forward as a grandfather thing, but it shouldn't be. This really should, my question is, why don't you just start afresh and recognize that the 28 suite building is a whole new project and deal with it accordingly, properly?
beginning was in reference to 6 units.
I can't quite, 6, I think there was 6 residential and 2 rental or something.
No, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong area. Back in October the 7th, when the report came out, it was corrected from 35 units to 28 under the current land use. So, and
No, no,
sorry, I'm reading it out to you. A 4-story apartment development that will contain 28 apartments.
on the north half.
Yes,
of the lot?
those 2 lots that were consolidated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the public this evening?
Uh,
None, none
yes,
being, I'll call the
Yes,
question.
no, your worship, excuse me, there, we have some participants online that have raised their hands. We have participants online that have raised their hands to ask the question.
Any participants in our Zoom meeting, please use the raise hand feature if you wish to ask a question. There are no questions, Your Worship.
No questions?
No questions.
Yep.